I was too obstinate to listen, so it wouldn't help him tell me anything. Consider it stupid. A couple more. That happy ending is over. The music industry is taking notice after Willie Nelson's shocking admission in an interview. The country star has exposed the artists he secretly detested after decades of harmony, marijuana, and poetry. He called one a charlatan wearing cowboy boots and another all hat, no heart. The list, which combines well-known competitors with surprising names, astounded fans. Let's discover who they are. Williams, Hank Jr. Few rivalries in the country music industry were as politically motivated as the subtly acerbic conflict between Willie Nelson and Hank Williams Jr. Hank Williams Jr. is well known for his traditionalist views and ingrained Southern beliefs. Didn't hesitate to criticize anybody who, in his opinion, deviated from the traditional rural mold. Willie Nelson, whose long hair, bandanas, and easygoing outlaw persona contrasted sharply with the traditional country style Hank Jr. admired, was one of his most vociferous targets. Willie's unconventional look and way of life were frequently criticized by Hank Williams Jr., who specifically focused on his outspoken support for legalizing marijuana. Williams Jr. made fun of Willie's long hair and hippie-like manner in interviews and remarks made on stage, implying that it was representative of a larger societal change that he considered concerning. Hank Jr. saw country music as a celebration of tradition, discipline, and heritage. He believed that the new outlaw country movement, of which Willie was a founding figure, was undermining his values. Willie Nelson handled the criticism with poise and composure. He decided to take a cool, collected stance in public remarks rather than intensify the conflict. He minimized the dispute in interviews by highlighting individual liberty, tolerance, and respect for one another. Willie frequently asserted that diverse viewpoints and styles were welcome in country music. He also stated unequivocally that he had no personal animosity towards Hank Jr., and I respect anyone who stays true to theirs. Willie once remarked, "We all walk our own path." This contrast between Hank Jr.'s fiery traditionalism and Willie's easygoing individualism represented a wider cultural division within country music in the 1970s and 1980s. Beyond their public remarks, the two musicians never launched direct personal attacks, but their argument brought to light a pivotal point in the development of the genre where tradition and rebellion collided, and the very meaning of country music was contested. Glen Campbell. Two country icons, Glen Campbell and Willie Nelson, developed a covert rivalry as the outlaw country genre gained popularity in the 1970s and early 1980s. Despite coming from the same larger musical lineage, they had quite different styles, personas, and career paths, which created a subtle friction that manifested more in interviews and words than in direct confrontation. With singles like Wichita Lineman and Rhinestone Cowboy, Glen Campbell, a polished artist with broad appeal, had seen tremendous success in the 1960s and early 1970s. He was well known for his polished appearance, silky voice, and popular television persona, which included his wildly popular variety show, The Glen Campbell Good Time Hour. But as outlaw country's gritty, unadulterated sound gained popularity thanks to artists like Merle Haggard, Juan Jennings, and Willie Nelson, Campbell started to feel more and more ignored by the media and younger generation. Willie Nelson's career took off. He embodied a new musical and cultural trend with his long hair, easygoing personality, and defiant attitude towards the Nashville system, such as his participation in The Wanted and Red-Headed Stranger. The Outlaws compilation contributed to the redefining of the image of country music by making it seem more hip and alternative. Glen Campbell couldn't help but feel that his own more refined and disciplined artistry was becoming outdated as Willie gained widespread recognition for his genuineness and rejection of convention. Although Campbell refrained from publicly criticizing Nelson, several of his remarks over the years revealed a feeling of annoyance. Occasionally, in a subtle allusion to Willie's unkempt outlaw image, he commented on how image appeared to be more important than musical ability in the new country setting. The celebration of rough edges and breaching the rules felt like a personal blow to Campbell, who took pride in his musicianship and skill. There was never a direct feud in spite of these underlying conflicts. In public, both guys acknowledged each other's skill. However, the contrast between Nelson's uprising and Campbell's refined legacy revealed a lot about the changing landscape of country music and the silent struggle between change and tradition. Willie Nelson and Julio Iglesias seemed to have created a distinctive cross-genre after their wildly popular duet, To All the Girls I've Loved Before in 1984, collaboration that united Latin pop and American country music. The song became a global hit, making its way up the US and European charts, and bringing both performers to new fans. Their cooperation first appeared to be a sign of respect and regard for one another. Beneath that professional achievement, though, was a private moment of stress that subtly damaged their bond. According to reports, the incident happened shortly after the song's debut during a well-known public gathering. Nelson claims that he felt ignored by Iglesias, who seemed to dismiss him in front of the guests and media. Willie later alluded in interviews that the Spanish crooner had acted, even if the specifics were never fully explained in the public, contemptuously towards him, not even acknowledging their cooperation or making the effort to participate in a simple conversation. This perceived affront was more than just a social faux pas for Willie, who cherished humility, respect for others, and friendship. It was insulting to me personally. Willie Nelson's dissatisfaction was evident, even though he refrained from openly expressing his displeasure or intensifying the situation. The moment left him with a terrible taste in his mouth, he said, expressing his sentiments with his usual calm and subtle honesty. Though it didn't turn into a media feud, the tension subtly put a stop to the two stars' future ambitions to work together. Actually, they didn't record together again after their first hit, and their career trajectories apart. For his part, Julio Iglesias never discussed the incident in public. It's unclear if the slight was deliberate or just a miscommunication. Nevertheless, the encounter represented a unique instance of unease in an otherwise cooperative career for Willie Nelson, who had collaborated with innumerable musicians from all genres and took pride in treating everyone equally. Even though it wasn't talked about much, it gave an otherwise acclaimed musical collaboration a faint undertone of anxiety. Neil Young. During one of their lengthy careers, Neil Young made a comment about Willie Nelson's guitar playing that caused a stir in the music industry. Young, who was well known for his directness and unwavering artistic beliefs, allegedly disregarded Nelson's guitar prowess as being too basic or imprecise. Given that both musicians were praised for pushing musical limits and were long regarded as like-minded rebels and true artists, it was a startling jab. The remark was a touchstone for Willie Nelson, not because he professed to be a virtuoso, but rather because playing the guitar, particularly on his cherished and worn-out Martin guitar, Trigger, was such an integral aspect of who he was. Willie honed his distinctive finger-picking technique over many years, fusing folk, blues, country and jazz to create something wholly original. Despite being unconventional, his phrasing, timing, and deep tone had become just as recognizable as his voice. His playing was more than merely competent in the eyes of his admirers and fellow musicians. It was quite expressive and unique. Willie did not, however, react angrily or publicly to Neil Young's remark when he learned about it. As usual, he chose the high road, dismissing it with his characteristically easygoing demeanor and a broad smile. He alluded to the criticism in interviews by admitting that not everyone liked his approach, but reaffirming that he played for his own feelings rather than to please. Willie once remarked, "I've always played from the heart." Nelson, who is known for his laid-back manner and dislike of drama, never allowed the critique to define his opinion of Young. "And if it sounds good to me, that's enough." Although the comment might have caused a brief moment of tension between the two legends, it never developed into a full-fledged feud. Willie Nelson versus Juan Jennings. Over time, their mutual respect as songwriters and cultural icons seemed to ease the temporary tension. Willie Nelson and Juan Jennings were two of the biggest names in country music, and their relationship was both complex and storied. It began in Phoenix, Arizona, in the early 1960s, and grew into one of the most famous friendships in the history of the genre. Willie saw Juan's talent right away, but he also saw the pitfalls that came with the well-oiled Nashville system. Behind the scenes of their acclaimed collaborations and shared legacy in the outlaw country movement, however, there was a dynamic full of arguments, creative tension, and intense affection. Willie famously told Juan to avoid Nashville, citing his own dissatisfied experiences with the inflexible Nashville establishment structures. Ironically, Jennings would later relocate there and become a star on his own terms. But the advice alluded to the philosophical rift that would sometimes arise between the two. Willie, with his easygoing Zen-like demeanor, frequently lent into improvisation and instinct, while Juan, with his more structured approach and notoriously fiery temper, frequently clashed with Nelson over musical direction, business decisions, and even lifestyle choices throughout their careers. Their disagreements resulted in arguments, sometimes loud, sometimes silent, but never destructive. They argued and quarreled, but beneath it all was unwavering loyalty, as Nelson once aptly described their relationship. They were like two old married people. Despite the tension, their collaboration produced remarkable results, and their 1978 album Juan and Willie was a critical and commercial triumph, driven by hits like Mama's Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. Through all the highs and lows, Nelson and Jennings stayed close, their friendship defined not by the lack of conflict, but by their ability to move past it, bound together by a mutual respect that lasted until Jennings's death in 2002. Together, they helped define the outlaw country sound, breaking free from traditional molds and creating space for more artistic freedom in the genre. Willie Nelson and Ray Price dispute ultimately. Their differences did not separate them. Rather, they shaped them as people and strengthened their partnership. Willie Nelson and Ray Price had one of the longest-lasting friendships in country music, characterized by mutual respect and a strong musical foundation, but also by one rather strange and unexpected incident that momentarily threatened to destroy it. A young and struggling Willie Nelson joined Ray Price's iconic touring band, the Cherokee Cowboys, as a bassist in the late 1950s, and under Price's guidance, he developed his songwriting and stage presence, while establishing a close personal relationship with the older, more established country star. According to those close to them, tension erupted when Nelson, at the request of Price's irate wife, decided to shoot Ray Price's beloved rooster. Over the years, Nelson would write a number of songs that Price would turn into hits, including the iconic Night Ife. However, an unexpected source tested the strength of their friendship. Price was furious when he learned that his rooster was more than just a barnyard animal. It was a pet and possibly a source of pride. Price's wife, tired of the mayhem, asked Willie to deal with the situation after he had become a nuisance, reportedly aggressive and causing havoc on the property, including the deaths of several hens. A serious blow from a singer who had helped elevate many of Nelson's early compositions. Price allegedly told Nelson in a fit of rage that he would never sing one of his songs again. Nelson reportedly responded without apology, arguing that Price should have stepped in himself after the first or second hen was killed, justifying his actions with his trademark blend of pragmatism and humor. Nelson's continued respect for Price was demonstrated in 2016 when he recorded For the Good Times, a tribute to Ray Price, 3 years after Price's passing. Despite the heated exchange, the two legends eventually made up. Time, laughter, and a rich history healed the wound, and their friendship endured. Willie Nelson and pop sensation Ed Sheeran were at the center of an unexpected musical feud that quickly became a headline-grabbing controversy. The album, which featured heartfelt renditions of Price's classic songs, was more than just a tribute. It was a final love letter to a mentor, a collaborator, and a friend whose bond with Willie had withstood even the strangest of trials. Willie's clash with Ed Sheeran. When both artists released songs within weeks of each other with strikingly similar titles and overlapping lyrical themes, the dispute began, and Nelson's camp was quick to draw attention to the similarities, saying that Sheeran's song was remarkably similar to one of Willie's unreleased compositions, both in tone and message. Using themes that Nelson had long explored in his writing, such as melancholy reflections on aging, love lost, and life on the road, Sheeran was accused by Nelson's team of heavily referencing Willie's signature style, implying that the younger artist had either been inspired too closely or had directly lifted elements from the country icon's unpublished work. The claim that Sheeran might have had access to demo recordings that were circulated to industry insiders months earlier fueled the flames. Sheeran was quick to react, publicly refuting the claims and asserting that any similarity was purely coincidental. He acknowledged his admiration for Nelson's legacy, but Sheeran insisted his songwriting process had been entirely independent. As tensions increased, Nelson's management threatened legal action, citing possible copyright infringement. He expressed disappointment that such claims had surfaced, stating that his musical influences were wide-ranging and not directly derived from any one artist. The dispute became the talk of the music industry, with experts analyzing both tracks and comparing lyrics, chord progressions, and melodies. In the midst of the escalating controversy, Nelson and Sheeran finally decided to meet in private, away from the circus of the media, after fans took sides on social media, starting heated arguments about what originality in songwriting means, and whether younger artists are unfairly scrutinized when they follow in the footsteps of legends. A mutual understanding resulted from the productive meeting, and both artists announced in a joint public statement that the issue had been settled amicably with no legal action to follow. The gesture of reconciliation was widely praised, reaffirming that even in a cutthroat industry, respect and communication can overcome miscommunication. Willie Nelson's feud with Merle Haggard, from their first collaboration in the 1960s to their final project in 2015, the relationship between these two country legends was based on complementary talents, shared experiences, and a deep love for telling stories through song. It stood as a testament to the power of musical camaraderie and mutual respect in an industry often marked by rivalry and ego. When outlaw country was at its height, they became pals. Nelson with his jazz-infused phrasing and quirky charm, and Haggard, the gritty working-class voice with a hard-won authenticity, found common ground in their desire for artistic freedom during this period of time, when both musicians were rebelling against the Nashville music machine. Their most famous collaboration was with Pancho and Lefty, a haunting cinematic ballad originally written by Townes Van Zandt, which peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart in 1983, garnering widespread acclaim and solidifying the duo's place in country music history. Despite having different styles, their voices blended effortlessly, creating a powerful and soulful harmony that resonated with audiences across generations. From the seashores of Old Mexico to their poignant swan song Django and Jimmy in 2015, their collaboration spanned decades and always felt natural, not like marketing efforts, but like conversations between old friends. More importantly, it reflected the emotional depth and chemistry that defined their partnership. Over the years, they would go on to record 6 albums together, each project highlighting their shared sensibilities and genuine affection for one another. There is no real evidence of any serious conflict between them, despite sporadic rumors of backstage tension. In fact, both men spoke highly of each other in interviews, with Haggard, who is known for his candor, once describing Nelson's The Party's Over as a masterpiece, and citing it as one of the most moving songs he had ever heard. Ultimately, Willie and Merle's legacy was not characterized by rivalry. Their final duet, recorded shortly before Haggard's death in April 2016, was a fitting tribute to their enduring bond, in which two aging legends reflected on life, music and friendship with a tenderness that comes only from decades of shared history. Willie Nelson vs. IRS. Willie Nelson's confrontation with the Internal Revenue Service in the early 1990s is one of the most well-known financial disputes in music history. In 1990, the IRS shocked fans and the entertainment industry by declaring that Nelson owed an astounding $16. It was characterized by harmony, loyalty, and timeless songs that still touch listeners today. A combination of unpaid taxes and bad financial advice, including failed investments that had been suggested and managed by his longtime accounting firm, Price Waterhouse, resulted in a debt of $7 million, which would have been a burden for almost any artist, even one of Nelson's caliber. The IRS moved quickly and dramatically to recover the debt, seizing almost all of Nelson's assets, including his recording studio, his cherished 44-acre ranch in Texas, and several personal belongings. Even valuable instruments and memorabilia were seized and put up for auction, giving the impression that the outlaw country legend might be permanently ruined. In 1991, Nelson released a double album called The IRS Tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories, which included stripped-down acoustic versions of many of his classic songs, and was specifically created to help pay down the enormous debt. However, true to his resilient nature, Nelson did not back down in defeat. In
Instead, he fought back in the most Willie Nelson way possible through music. With a special arrangement with the IRS, the album was first sold by phone order. Later, it was released in stores, and the proceeds from sales went directly towards his repayment. Meanwhile, Nelson filed a lawsuit against Price Waterhouse, alleging that the latter had handled his finances negligently and mishandled his money. The case was settled out of court with undisclosed terms, but it gave Nelson the opportunity to shift his attention to paying off his tax debt. When Nelson and the IRS finally reached a settlement in 1993, after years of negotiations, the total amount was lowered to $9 million, of which Nelson had already paid $3 million. Nelson was able to pay the remaining balance in full with his ongoing earnings from album sales and touring, and the experience only strengthened his reputation as an outlaw, rather than damage it. The IRS battle, although extremely stressful, ultimately became a defining chapter in Nelson's storied career, highlighting both his flaws and his fierce perseverance. More importantly, it taught Nelson to become more hands-on with his finances. Fans admired his transparency and determination, and the incident inspired future creative work, including songs with a defiant tone like "Won't Get Fooled Again." Willie and Johnny Cash's Tiff, two of the biggest names in country music, Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash, had a close friendship and decades-long creative collaboration built on mutual respect, a love of song storytelling, and their outsider status in Nashville's establishment. Despite their closeness, even these legends were not immune to the occasional clash. In the 1980s, their friendship was briefly tested over what seemed to be a relatively minor issue, but one that struck a chord with both artists, a misunderstanding involving a song. Together, they embodied the essence of the outlaw country movement, two rebels with very different styles, but a shared goal to create music on their own terms. Whether on purpose or not, the action caused friction between the longtime friends, and Johnny Cash, who was known for his strong sense of loyalty and integrity, felt betrayed by what he saw as a broken promise. Nelson had promised him a certain track to record for his next album, but Willie ended up recording and releasing the song himself, much to Cash's surprise and disappointment. Given their long-standing friendship and history of supporting one another, the two legends' brief separation caused a stir in country music circles, as they reportedly avoided each other at public events, and their previously constant collaboration came to a halt. However, neither man allowed pride or miscommunication to sever their relationship forever. Their renewed friendship was soon on full display when they joined forces with Lon Jennings and Chris Christopherson to form the Highwaymen, a supergroup that went on to record multiple albums and tour together to great acclaim. Eventually, they had an honest and open conversation, choosing to clear the air rather than let the misunderstanding fester. Their reconciliation was made possible by their shared values, respect, brotherhood, and understanding of the pressures of the music industry. In addition to renewing their friendship, this partnership solidified Nelson and Cash's place as two of the most significant voices in American music. Until his passing in 2003, Johnny Cash and Willie remained close friends, demonstrating that even enduring friendships can withstand adversity and emerge stronger. We hope you have found this video useful, and if you do, please leave a like, share and subscribe to the channel. Their story serves as a reminder that the connections made through music can endure even the most human of miscommunications. What do you think about the singers that Willie Nelson despises? Let us know in the comments section below. I appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you in the following videos.